Valued at $980, but the owner wants $850. Is it a good buy? Here is practical advice from my experience buying hundreds of similar homes. If buying in Australia, I'll teach you in 3 minutes how to judge these off-market deals. Buying over 100 Melbourne properties annually, we currently have 30 such off-market listings we haven't even viewed yet. Besides the one I mentioned earlier, there are plenty of properties selling for $30,000 to $50,000 less than the bank's valuation. At the end of the video, I'll also teach you how to judge these deals and the 3 steps you must take if you come across a bargain. First of all, what does off-market mean? Off-market isn't anything mysterious. It just means properties that haven't been listed yet and can't be found online. Actually, every property in Australia that's planning to be sold but hasn't been listed yet goes through an off-market phase. It's just that if you don't know the agent, they won't let you know in advance, and you won't have access to this information. If you interact with agents a bit, they might start offering you 1 or 2 properties. So let me give you the first major conclusion. There are a lot of pitfalls in off-market properties. But keep listening, because I'll also talk about the many opportunities later, so be patient. Don't close this or scroll away. When it comes to buying a house, even saving a little means at least a year's salary without spending anything. But first, why do I say there are so many pitfalls? Because I like to start by talking about the drawbacks. That's just how I am. If you don't have experience, just think about it. When a property is officially listed on the market, it's open to everyone, right? You're definitely not the only one viewing it. While you're looking at the house, you can also hear what others think about it, and you might even overhear people asking the agent questions like why the house is being sold and so on. In other words, the whole process is much more transparent. As for the agent, once the property is listed online, the description of the house becomes more transparent as well. If there are any mistakes or deliberately misleading information in the listing, it could be subject to regulatory oversight, and the agency might be penalized for it. But if the property isn't listed and the agent takes you to see it privately, then the situation is completely different. You know what I mean, right? There's no evidence for you to catch them with. When you're just viewing a property normally, you're unlikely to record video or audio the whole time. So when the agent tells you certain key information, they'll do it when you're not recording. That means they have plenty of opportunities to mislead you. For example, they might say, oh, this property can be developed, or talk about the surrounding area, or casually claim that the land has a different status. You have no way to tell on the spot whether what they're saying is true or false. Or actually, in Australia, the buying and selling of property is very strictly regulated and overseen by law. But the selling agent absolutely knows exactly where the legal boundaries are. You have to understand that agents are extremely shrewd. If they weren't, they couldn't do this job. Even though I might be pretty good at talking, I still couldn't be a real estate agent, or at least I wouldn't be good at it. In such a private setting, if you don't have professional knowledge like we do, it's very easy for you to be misled by them. The second pitfall is that the homeowner might just be testing the waters, or people's attitudes can change. So even if you want to make an offer, you have to be very careful because you need to put yourself in their shoes and empathize with their perspective. For example, if you're selling something and before you've even put in much effort, you already get a pretty good result, a good price, and someone starts making an offer, would you sell it right away? Wouldn't you think if I put in a bit more effort and listed on the market, maybe I could sell it for even more? So when you really come across a great deal, you shouldn't get too excited. You need to play it cool, act like you're picking it apart. Point out some possible flaws in the house, hesitate a bit, even if you're just pretending, mention what you think isn't good about it, and then make an offer. Now that we've talked about the disadvantages of off-market deals, let's discuss the advantages of off-market deals. What are the advantages of off-market deals? Actually, the advantage of off-market deals is that there are a lot of hidden gems. For example, in the past 2 months, almost 80% of the houses we bought were off-market, and they were all really great deals. But you have to understand, there are a lot of buyer's agents out there, or agents' friends and relatives. There are a lot of them, right? Because of their connections, a lot of really good properties do get bought before they ever hit the market. I'm not saying that there aren't any good deals once a property is listed, right? And in Melbourne, I'm definitely not the only buyer's agent, not even the only Chinese one, let alone agents from other backgrounds. In fact, there are at least hundreds of buyer's agents here. If an agent can have a good relationship with us, they can certainly have good relationships with others too, right? If you think about it this way, when there really is a good property, we're definitely not the only team with a discerning eye. So do you really think you'll still have a chance to wait for the good stuff to hit the market? And please don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying there's nothing left once it's listed. What I mean is, during the off-market phase, there are far more opportunities that you might miss out on. Let's go back to this logic. You really need to develop your own ability to discern and identify these opportunities. If you manage to find a property that's priced significantly below the market, you must strictly follow these 3 steps. The first step is to visit the property in person, and you need to keep your eyes wide open. If the owner has anything covered up or hidden, you must insist on uncovering it and taking a look. At the same time, you also need to use your nose and your ears. You should listen for things like whether there are any strange noises from the neighbors. For example, we've encountered many cases where neighbors are illegally keeping dogs. Also, use your nose to smell if there are any odd odors in the house. By odd odors, I mean, for instance, if oil-based paint with a strong smell is being used to cover up possible previous water leaks. The second point is that you still need to do your own due diligence and not get too excited too early. Check whether there are any differences between this property and the neighboring lots, or whether there are already houses on this street that are exactly the same but have already been developed. Also, check whether the easement for this property is normal, because sometimes on a given street it might be that only house number 2, for example, has an easement running right through the middle of the property. The owner knows this puts their house at a disadvantage, so they won't put it on the market for sale. So here, I'll teach you the best method. If you really don't understand what I just said, you can simply call the council, give them the address and tell them, I want to buy this house and plan to develop it in the future. Is there any issue with this property? The council won't refuse you, they'll help you check. At most, they'll say they need to consult the planning department and then email you back. Based on our experience, we've actually found out a lot of things this way, like properties with a bad history, such as previous development applications being rejected, or owners illegally cutting down trees, which means the council won't allow you to develop in the future. There are also cases of illegal rentals, where the council has already investigated and put the property on a blacklist. So the simplest way is just to ask the council. The third point, and this is the most important one, even if you didn't find any issues in the previous 2 steps, don't let your excitement show on your face, because the house isn't yours yet. You absolutely must not let others, especially the landlord, feel that way. If you're familiar with the agent, it's actually fine for the agent to know, but you must never let the landlord think that they're selling too cheap, or that you've scored a bargain, or that you seem overly eager. So what should you do? If you do this, you'll definitely be taken advantage of, and the landlord's mindset might even change because of your ignorance, your own ideas, your ignorance, and your deliberate display of eagerness could end up changing things for yourself. That's all for today's sharing. If you found today's content helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe, and feel free to check out my other videos on the channel. Everything has 2 sides. I wouldn't say that just because I have a lot of off-market properties in my hands, we help our clients buy only these kinds of houses. You still need to stay calm and rational. For every property, whether it's listed or off-market, you need to examine it thoroughly and use this sense of duality to evaluate it.